The United Nations General Assembly has just been concluded 2 days ago, and the main thing that Africans have been expecting from this meeting, the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly, was Africa's request for permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council, but without any really concrete result. It has been concluded. But we have observed some interesting thing in this Africa's quest for permanent seat with full veto power in its quest to be in this permanent seat circle, which for now has only five members. We have seen two prominent black women, how they have analyzed Africa's quest for permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. One of them is a former ambassador of the African Union to the United States, Her Excellency Dr. Arikana Chiambori Kwawo, and the other one is the Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield, which is the ambassador of the United States to the United Nations. And now this Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield, just before a day or 2 days before the United Nations General Assembly of this year, has announced the United States support for Africa's to have two permanent seats in the United Nations Security Council. But she said without veto power. Now, Al Jazeera has sat down with Dr. Arikana Chiambori Kwawo how she views this. And she said it's an insult for Africa. You are inviting Africa to the table, but you are telling Africa you cannot eat what is on the table, which is right. And I think 100% what Africans agree with Dr. Arikana Chiambori Kwawo. But the thing is that both these women are two black women, and one is, of course, she's from the US. The other one is from Africa. And it's interesting how always the United States or the West uses these black faces whenever it is something embarrassing or an insult for Africa. And those black people continue to be to be a medium of this kind of things. It's not that, they are forced, it's something perhaps they believe in. Without really going in detail now, let me just let you listen what the two ladies have said, and you judge it for yourself.
As it stands, there are currently 3 non-permanent seats on the Security Council allocated to African countries on a rotating basis for 2 years. The problem is these elected seats don't enable African countries to deliver the full benefit of their knowledge and voices to the work of the Council, to consistently lead on the challenges that affect all of us and disproportionately affect Africa. That is why, in addition to non-permanent memberships for African countries, the United States supports creating 2 permanent seats for Africa on the Council. It's what our African partners seek, and we believe this is what is just.
Ambassador Chiambori, let me ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how enthusiastic are you about the proposal that the ambassador has just made?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a step in the right direction. However, keeping in mind that this issue has been on the table, ongoing for, like you said, 80 years. If we are going to right the wrong, why can't we just right this wrong once and for all? If Africa is going to become a member of the UN Security Council, a permanent member, They must have the full rights, just like the other 5 members, which means they must have veto power. Inviting Africa to the table and then asking them to remain mute, it's an insult not only to the African leaders, but it is an insult to 1.4 billion people. We appreciate what Ambassador Greenfield is saying. We appreciate the efforts she has made. But if she is going to complete this journey that has been going on for far too long, a journey that clearly exemplifies the continued disrespect of the African continent, Ambassador Greenfield must push for us to take this issue to the finish line. Africa must have 2 permanent seats at the UN Security Council with full veto power. Nothing less is acceptable. And I do believe that the United Nations, understanding how long this issue has been going on, how long the disrespect of the African continent has been going on, it is shameful that the United Nations would want to continue to blatantly disrespect the Africans by inviting them to the table, but then saying, sorry, you can't eat. You can only watch us play our games. You can watch us enjoy the 10-course meal. What a joke. What an insult. And I do hope that the African leaders are not going to accept it. Africa must be at the table as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, and the 2 seats must have veto power, plain and simple, period.
Do you think Ambassador Thomas Greenfield doesn't understand this? Do you think, what do you think is behind this offer? When you said, hey, you appreciate the progress she's made. We do know that this was a promise or a commitment that President Joe Biden is trying to fulfill before the end of his term. But do you think they are not aware about how controversial it is to create permanent seats without votes?
Of course they know what they're doing. So again, that's where the disrespect comes in. They know what they're doing. They know what the right thing to do is. No, we do not want to dilute our veto power if we give 2 more seats with veto power. No, we're simply saying the slice is big enough. The world is bigger than 5 countries representing over 7 billion people. We're simply saying serious wrongs have been perpetrated against Black people. Here is an opportunity for President Biden to right this wrong. This is an opportunity that we cannot miss. Africans must be at the table. 1.4 billion people must be represented. The continued disrespect of the Africans has got to come to an end. So we're asking President Biden and his running mate, Kamala Harris, who I hope will be the next president of the United States, they will right this wrong once and for all. And Ambassador Thomas Greenfield, we understand all the work that you have done. Please, as a sister, as an ambassador, we're asking you to take this issue to the finish line. Permanent positions on the UN Security Council with full veto power like the other 5 Ps.
I've seen that.
So, I mean, Dr. Arikana Chihombori, obviously, she's a very great diplomat, as she herself has been the ambassador of the African Union to the United States. But the things that I want to bring to light for today is that how the United States or the West, or also this international, the so-called international organizations, institutions continue to use these black faces to break such, to bring this kind of news. And that's what I want you to pay attention. These same black faces are the one who the US or other Western countries employ in international organizations like the UN, or in The Hague, like the ICC, in the International Criminal Court. by making them like a judge or the head, that they bring the African leaders and embarrass them. And the same thing, this kind of black faces from the West in the international organization like UN pass a decision of course, the decision that comes from their government, but pass a decision, something that will harm Africa. Perhaps it could be, passing a decision of to invade somewhere in Africa, or whatever, execution of some kind of leader in Africa. So on the other hand, we have people like Dr. Arikana Chiombori, who herself was, as I said, the ambassador of the African Union to the United States. And the way her career was stopped is because she spoke unapologetically about France's continued neo-colonialism in West Africa. That's what brought the end of her career. And the African Union, of course, which most of its programs have been run by the West or funded by the West, has made the organization to simply terminate her ambassadorship to the United States. So that is really, really interesting. But all in all, if Africa gets this permanent seat, first of all, why it should be two? It should be, if it is two, then which African countries? There are a lot of things that are surrounding this. And a couple of days ago, I made a video about this, and which African countries should sit at the permanent seat, should be given the permanent seat of the United Nations Security Council. And how are they going to be selected? Is it by some kind of geopolitical interest, or is it by economical, being a powerhouse in the region? Or is it by their diplomacy? How is it going to be selected? Is it something that the African Union will agree with? Is it something, that is going to be approved by all member states? All that is not really laid out by the African Union. So, in fact, what is agreed with, the consensus was that an African Union to have a seat representing in the United Nations Security Council. But of course, the African Union do not have that mandate, because it's still intergovernmental body and it doesn't have the power. It's like a toothless lion. So unless it's given, the institution is given that power, it will be meaningless just for the African Union to have a seat, that will be really meaningless. But the way it's going to be selected, some kind of clear and transparent mechanism should be introduced. And otherwise it will bring disagreement amongst the member states. And again, the whole non-African countries, we laugh at our continent, that we are fighting and we can't even decide. Also, you don't have to forget that now countries are also individually pushing their own agenda, that's their own interest to be given that permanent seat. For example, Nigeria is doing that, South Africa is doing that, and there are other countries who have interest in that. So regardless of the African Union, that's really a shame. Before I conclude, I want to ask you this question. Now, this meeting has been concluded and without any really, I don't think Africa was expecting any answer that it will be given the permanent seat with veto power or whatever at this 79th session. I think it will take a while. It will just something that is announced by the US for the consumption of media. But But what is the point, really? What is the point now in the absence of not being given this veto power? What is the point for Africa really to remain for all these 54, 55 member states in the United Nations? Should Africa leave the United Nations and then establish its own, or maybe, I don't know, empower BRICS? What do you think? What kind of measure Africa should take? And if permanent seat is given, which African countries should represent Africa? But why not also the African Union? As I said, there are also challenges. It should have that power. So why two is the question? Why not one? And in this permanent seats members, it is the United States, France, the UK, China, and Russia. It's like China and Russia versus US, because those two, the UK and France, I mean, they'll just do whatever the US wants, or those three are always on the same page. It's like China, Russia versus United States, England, and France. So why not actually having one member representing the continent? I mean, for example, for the European Union, it's possible to do that. So most of the things they do on agreed terms. But for the African Union, it's really problematic. The fact that, US said 2 permanent seats for Africa, it for me, it looks like also it's a trap, because they will see, they will see it unfold that these African countries will fight, and it can use it also to manipulate and create these conflicts against member states. So that way, that other members of the United Nations start to say, oh, Africa cannot even agree who will represent the continent. So like, this continent is really just way behind. It's there's a lot of questions that come to my mind. But also you can say, is this really the problem with the UN? Why not the African Union? If the African Union or the member states have really this unified, or this unity in terms of politics, I mean, political unity and economical unity as well, then they will not be embarrassed by the UN like this. So as much as, I mean, these days I'm really careful that, because I'm conscious and aware that as much as we are pointing our fingers at the West, I mean, we should be able also to point that finger at ourselves, because there is no, how do you say? I mean, we always have been part of our own destruction, our own demise. Most of our leaders were assassinated by our own people, even if they were, sponsored by big agents like CIA or whatever. But still, it's our own people, Black people, that are doing the execution, the work on the ground. So we should also look at ourselves. We are not really free from this. We are an accomplice of this neocolonialism or imperialism, whatever you want to call it. We all, as an African or Black people, we have been taking part in our own demise. So let us know in the comment section whether you agree with me or not. Yeah, in general, these two Black women, also how they are representing really Africa. I mean, the other one is for the US. But she said when she announced it that she recognized that where it's her root, and that makes her really excited to bring this news, this and that. So she identified herself as a Black person. Well, yeah, let us know in the comment section, what do you think of this? Thanks again for tuning in. But also, I don't know how many minutes that is. I really want you to listen. Maybe I will share it on the next video, because when it's concluded, the Deputy Prime Minister of Luxembourg in his speech as the United Nations said kind of the Africans do not deserve this veto power. If any new member is given the veto power, then that will be only creating problem. That's how they are disrespectful to Africa. And I don't think there is, it's such an insult what this Deputy Prime Minister from Luxembourg has said. Let me see if I can get the video. It will take long, but yeah, I can maybe pull it for you. Yeah, maybe on a different video. Let me share this with you.
The 5 permanent members and Africa not represented. And in 2024, now we're asking ourselves, well, how can we have a Security Council talking about the world without Africa being represented? That's the first thing. And now we're being told, well, it would be good to have this and that country as a permanent member. I'm not opposed to that. But it's not by enlarging the circle of the privilege that we will become more efficient. If we want to be more effective, we have to ask ourselves the question whether it's normal that a permanent member, through a veto, is able to block a process. No, it's not. I think you have to think about this. Security Council reform, why couldn't it be that if a country enters a veto, a 2/3 majority would be able to overturn that veto, and that then there would be a vote in the General Assembly, and if 2/3 here as well voted in a different direction to the veto, then that veto would be rendered ineffective. If we want to make progress, that's the only thing we can do. Just having more members in the Security Council would just be expanding the problem, because more people would have the right to veto. So we've signed an agreement that I don't want to dictate things. For a long time, Europe thought it knew what was best for Africans. No, Africans have to make their own choices, but it's important to support them as well through cooperation policies. And then you can have partnerships, you can have exchanges and collaborations. What I ask of those countries, however, is not the minerals, it's not about the economic recovery, and I'm not asking them to change their legislation. All I'm asking is that they don't backslide, that they don't go backwards. So, in other words, the rights that exist for everybody already are respected, be that the rights of women. When I think of a country that's a member here where women don't have the right anymore to be educated, do we accept that? No, and I won't shut up about that. I don't accept it. Where religions can't be followed in a country, no, I don't accept that. And when we ask that the rights of minorities and gender minorities are respected as it exists today and there be no backsliding, I will say something if that's not the case. This week I was at a meeting with a head of state, African head of state, and I wanted to work with them, and I spoke about these 3 conditions. This the importance of respecting them. And that head of state told me with regard to sexual minorities that if their population feel that homosexuality is a crime, then they will criminalize it. To be a head of state, Mr. President, is not always to do what the majority wants. It's also to defend the minorities in a country. You can't always follow what some people want against others, to be done against others. In a country of diversity is what makes the wealth of a country. And if tomorrow rights that exist now are withdrawn, that means that I can't have a serene dialogue with that country if they go in that direction. And I regret that very much. And I'm not asking anybody to change their rules on abortion or religion, or to have marriage for everyone, or give rights today that don't exist. But don't backtrack. These are things that we've seen in Europe and elsewhere in the world. So don't make that mistake of going back to a previous world.
Well, there you go. He told it in front of everyone, every member state there in the United Nations, actually, it's not going to happen. There you have it. You see, like before even it's concluded that this prime minister, deputy prime minister of Luxembourg has told that it's not going to happen. And in fact, and he starts to lecture as usual. Here Anton Dalema says, here comes a lecture. Yeah, he was lecturing them. If anything Africa needs to work on is right now not to have a veto power in the United Nations Security Council. It should be things like this minority gender, about these things that they are they are forcing, not enforcing, but African countries to give rights for gay people, or it should be for Africa to give a right for women. And there's a third thing that he talked about, and these are the thing, or really religion of those are the three things. Now the veto power is not an issue. This is, guys, what you need to work on, and go back. That's it. No veto power, right? That's simply what he's saying, really. And these are the people that you are sitting with, because and he said, if anything, actually, why we don't talk about when there is something, a veto power, if 2/3 of the majority can change it or something. I mean, they know that they can manipulate. I don't know, 2/3 of majority, whether he's talking about the 193 member of the United Nations or the 5 permanent member states. Then in both cases, the West will win, because we all have seen even things that are happening in Africa. They can manipulate, and with their money and everything, with our dumb heads of states, they can manipulate and get their vote whenever they want to pass some kind of resolution. If this deputy prime minister of Luxembourg talking about the 2/3 vote within that circle of 5, the 5 Ps, they are still winning, because there are 3 of them are always on the same page: US, France, and UK. It's only Russia and China every time opposing it. So they are the majority within that 5 circle. They are the majority also within the bigger mass, the 193 members in the United Nations. Although Africa has Africa alone has 1/4 of it. But what can I say? Thanks to our, disagreement, or our agreement to disagree, or agreement not to have that political unity, then it always plays in their favor whenever a resolution passes. And look what happened in 2011, the decision that has been passed against Muammar Gaddafi of Libya, that was brought up by France and Lebanon, because they always like to bring a people of your own, one Arab country with it. So just like that is what they do with Africa. So the issue was brought, his removal was brought by France mainly, and the Lebanon. It's France and US, but it was said, okay, France and Lebanon, and then they did not even respect the decision of the African Union, in which there were heads of states, 5 or something, they were en route on air flying to mediate between Muammar Gaddafi and the rebels. They have already things laid out on the ground. It's just that they have to arrive there. But guess what? They made them to return that flight, so that they said, no, we have decided and we're going to remove him. And that's what they did. And when they passed that decision, Africa now, the quest is to have a seat in a permanent seat. But we do have 3 non-permanent seats always. I mean, it rotates between countries. So Africa has 3 seats in the non-permanent seat. So it's 10 of them. So from different continents, and Africa has 3. South Africa, and what was the other African country? Oh my God, Nigeria, and there's a third one. They have approved what is decided by France and those 5 pieces, the 5 permanent seats, and they made those heads of states to reroute and go back to where it departed, so that they go and they execute, their plan. This is how we are. So, at some point for me, why do we need this permanent seat? I mean, there are priorities for Africa to do. That is to unify. Unless we are unified, it's going to be every time a problem. I don't think it will solve any decision. I mean, in whose favor these 2 permanent seats are going to work? Are they going to advance their own agenda, or are they really going to represent Africa? Yeah, that's a big question, and that's a big homework. And the African Union has not done that homework. It's in that gap, in all this mess. They went to the United Nations General Assembly of this 79th session. I don't know what they are expecting, while they know they haven't done their homework. Yeah. So I don't want to make the videos longer. That's something that we are embarking these days to make them. I mean, we are not bait and click. Click and bait, or bait and click, however it's called, but click and bait. Yeah. So, but still, we are also to make it kind of a reasonable duration. That France and England permanent members with the veto makes you a clown show. Hey, Osie, good to see you here. Bertie Earl, the most pressing thing for him is about, yeah, exactly. Those are the things that I want to lecture you. And they are telling you are backward with that. Go and do that, and then maybe you sit at the table with us. I mean, there are different ways to say this. But it is just an insult. Really, I would, if I am they should walk away. Probably they have just sit there and have been listening. Oh my God! If we are not given it, yeah. See, and this 301 now. What is the population of Luxembourg? Oh my God, you guys. Yeah, Luxembourg was there lecturing. Muzungu got backwards mindset, and yeah, here comes like exactly that's how you felt. Antandalema. Thank you very much, Siendes, Imhotep Heru, for all of you. And Alula Kok, thank you. My son is giving a shout out to me. So thank you. Yeah, so let us know in the comment section, what do you think of this? Me, I just wanted to share, like, put it out of my chest, so I feel good. Now I want to know what you're saying about this. That was it for me for now. Thank you very much. So please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that so far, and give it a like. It will help our YouTube algorithm. Of course, if you like what we bring you here. And share the video with others. If you want to support us further, you can go ahead and support through our PayPal account. Thank you very much for those of you who are supporting us. Patricia Koch, and also I have one other sister. Oh my God, I forgot her name, but thank you so much. They know who they are. Thank you. Really, we are grateful for you, for continuing to support us. It's a baba for me for now, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.